Okay, so welcome once again to our monthly East LA R user group meetings. So today we have two presentations. One of them was actually canceled because Alan, the talk number 2, had a personal problem, so he wasn't able to come. But he might be presenting in the next or tomorrow meeting. So he apologized for not being able to come. But we still have one very interesting, actually, one of the talks that has the most interesting title, I would say, so far. So working with data in the music business, in the music industry. So today our first speaker will be John Rosenfelder, and then Z was kind enough to prepare a lightning talk for 50 minutes. So she will be telling us about what she learned in the RStudio conference, which was recently in Texas. Okay. Before starting, a couple of announcements, as usual. So, as you know, we do have a website that you can subscribe there if you want to get news, if you want to know about other groups. There are a bunch of other art groups that are in the region, in the area. And we are communicating with them, so we try to advertise events and stuff like that. So you can go there. The next event, it's that meeting, so it's the OC R user group of Beyond Money of Climate Change, Research and more, and this is from the calendar. So again, so we do have a Google Calendar there, so you can subscribe to it if you want. I recommend you to do that. For the next month, we have already 2 book spaces. So Professor Marion Plank is going to tell us about spatial analysis and data visualization with R. And I think it's Daniel Chu, right? Who's going to be telling us about her. So he's a grad student here at USC. And as usual, if you want to give a talk, which is a great way of actually getting yourself into the R world, please tell us. We'll happily give you a space here. And it doesn't need to be like a super high-level talk. It could be an intermediate or a beginner's talk. We actually saw once somebody who actually wasn't using R before, so he annotated, he scheduled a talk about getting into R before actually knowing R. So he told us about what was his experience while learning how to start coding in R for the first time, which was very interesting. So we encourage you to do that. And very important, we have the Surveys conference in April. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, so this is a format of conference that is actually being organized worldwide. There's a lot of satellite cities, and the idea of the conference is that it's a low-cost conference for people who's interested in art. Because as you know, usually conferences are hundreds of dollars, right, the ticket, but this is actually very cheap for both professionals and students, and it's a very interesting spot to learn new things. So. Unfortunately, the Conf papers it's done already, so I think it was yesterday, right? Sunday. But you can, of course, attend, and we recommend you to. We are helping with what we can. Malcolm put the banner on the website, so if you want to know more about it, you can either go to that website or in our website, you can find more information about it. Okay? And as usual, also, as always, we thank the Department of Preventive Medicine, which is feeding us with some nice pizza and water and the space, of course, because otherwise we would be doing this on the street, I don't know, online. So thank you. Okay? And finally, to keep in touch, we have a Twitter account, we have a Slack channel, which we use a lot actually. We have our GitHub, and you can always send us an email. Okay? So now, again, for the first presentation of the night, we're going to hear from John Rosenfelder, who is he worked with R in the music industry. Okay, so he moved to this area kind of a little bit recently, right? To R.
Talk about it.
Machine learning. Yeah. So he'll tell us about his experience. Okay.
All right.
So thank you for coming.
Okay. Thanks. You're welcome. We'll switch into presentation mode. This is going to play it in sequence like a cassette or something. I don't know if I want that.
Oh, you have to turn off the mic.
I just want to go one at a time.
Okay.
All right. Can you see that? Okay. So, thanks, George. All right. I think I'm probably set up. So, my name's John Rosenfelder. The talk is about data in the music business, but also subtitled Music in the Data Business, because these days music is part of, music distribution is largely handled by tech companies, apps, companies outside of the traditional music business. I'm from the traditional music business, and I'm going to talk to you tonight about my transformation from being a sales and marketing person in the music business to becoming a data scientist in music and entertainment. And you may be wondering why I'm showing this guy and this set of technology up there. This is a college radio station studio, and that's actually my college radio station. That's not me, but that's back in Stony Brook, New York. That's WUSB, the old studio. And the reason I'm showing that is because my previous relationship with this school is as a college radio promotion person. My job was to make friends with all the college radio stations around the country and try and get them to play records and do interviews and so on. And I'm going to tell you about how I got into that career and how it sort of has informed how I've transformed in a way into this new thing. Did anybody see the Grammys last night? Why do we watch the Grammys every year? I think that the reason people watch the Grammys, and it's such a popular show around the world, is because it enables people who aren't intense music fans to get an annual survey of what's popular, what's trendy and exciting to people who really love music and run radio stations and go to concerts and so on. Same way, for me, actually, the Super Bowl is like the one day or the 2 hours that I participate with football for an entire year. So anyway, the Grammys is a way of enabling music fans to organize the complexity when you're dealing with not just, let's say, the history of music, but even just 1 year of music. But if you're a fan, and when we become fans of music, we have to somehow interact with this idea of the history of music, and how do we find our paths through that and have some sort of framework or idea of what we like about music and so on. And of course, we're here at a meetup about R and technology and statistics and data visualization and all that, and how it relates to this world and the decisions and interactions of music fans and how they relate to the new platforms and how they relate to each other is all data-driven at this point, and these companies are really crunching numbers and making charts and reports and all this stuff. But what I'm going to show you for the first sort of half of this presentation is about how all the old ideas from the music biz and how people are fans and relate to music are just being repeated in this new world with different tools. So let's see if I can work this thing and get it to go ahead a slide or two. So I was in the college radio station. I have 2 microphones now. And we talked about organizing the complexity of the music biz. So we used to have not just radio stations, but we had record stores. We had all these forms of curation, this word that sprung up around the tech companies. So record stores, of course, I'm not, this isn't new to some people in this room, but there used to be so many record stores that there could be different genres of record stores, different configurations of things that they sold. And this was a way that people could feel more comfortable dealing with the history of this massive amount of data called music. And maybe if you're drifting a little bit, think about when I talk about the history of music as just another data set that you might be looking at or trying to understand or comprehend in a way. So anyhow, so we have these forms of curation in the old world and different ways of navigating the info. Someone mentioned family trees before, so I felt I had to include this diagram from an old book called Rock Family Trees. And Rock Family Trees. This diagram is actually stolen off of Google Images just now. That's why it's all blurry and messed up, but it shows which band members came from which bands and so on. And once again, another way of helping people understand the history of music. You could go to a bookstore and buy a book, this book, the Rock Family Trees, and it had, 100 diagrams like this. And wouldn't you imagine that the data on the back end of Spotify, Google Play, Apple iTunes, etc., don't you think that the recommendation algorithms take this sort of information right off the bat? Very obvious. I don't think there's anything new under the sun. There's just new ways to do it. So when we heard radio stations all put out lists of songs. And you'd go to a record store and you could actually see a list of songs on a specific station, who's on the station, actual little picture of them, because we didn't have Google Images then. And this would be a way of, again, informing your decision making. I made lists of songs. This is a list of songs I made when I was 7 years old of Jackson 5 songs. And this is this slide was put in here when I was giving a presentation to a bunch of people from radio stations. I'm not unique. In fact, I think even amongst these biomedical and biostatistics majors and stuff, there are people who made lists of songs, and if not lists of songs, lists of trees, lists of single-cell animals, I don't know. But lists are important. And going back to the college radio station, that guy sitting at that mixing board had a playlist. This is a word that people are familiar with now from the world of Spotify and so forth. So the DJ would do a show, and if he was very conscientious, write down what records he played. And then the music director would come along and try and compile all these songs into a playlist to get to that yellow page that we just saw before. But now you can see a college radio playlist is much more complex and scarier than the top 40 radio station. And it's really just summing up and aggregating all the different playlists of the radio station. So now you've got one DJ making a playlist, a radio station's a set of playlists, and a chart is a list of lists made up of littler lists. Does this sound familiar now? Now we're into data, right? So I was a college radio music director, and then I wanted to be in the music business. And so at the time, college radio stations were considered a cheap and unique channel to expose new artists with. A big group from the college radio era is REM. Their career parallels mine exactly. But anyway, there used to be a chart of college radio stations, and so this was a way for me to get into the music business. My school happened to be close to Manhattan, and I was able to go work in a record company because I was somebody who knew about this scene. Similar approach now. I'm going to absorb as much as I can about data, statistics, data visualization, SQL, Excel, R. I'm going to speak about it at places, and I'm going to make myself into this thing that I think someone's going to want. So that's sort of the narrative of the talk that we're in. And when I was a promotion guy, I actually made data visualizations comparing my notes, let's say, on which songs were happening on which stations. I could compare with this Venn diagram which stations my song had, which stations the competitive record had, which ones we both had, and then direct the activities of my promotion team to focus on getting these guys to move up, being higher on the stations that we shared, and getting these ones that we don't have at all. So, as I said to somebody before, I was a data scientist before I was a data scientist. And then along came technology, which really wiped out this underground part of the music business. And things like Pitchfork took the place of the college radio music journal, CMJ. And so that end of things really, had this sweeping effect, and the only real scientific or sort of brave thing to do at that point was to become a technology person myself. And so to try and deal with the waning aspect of the business and get into this stuff of data, first thing I saw when I got into data was this book called Cartographies of Time. It's all about tables. This thing, iTunes, that's another list of songs and looks like a spreadsheet to me. This caption over here is explaining SQL calls to queries to people who don't know what databases are. So again, turning experiences and content into spreadsheets, and keeping in mind as we go along the famous expression, data is people. This is a list of records. Every one of these records, in my case, right, this is my my library of records on Discogs. So I took stacks of vinyl and made it into a spreadsheet. And this slide's a little out of place, but it's a good time to mention these guys because we're at the R meetup, right? So you want to know how I got into R and why I'm at the R meetup is because when I started reading about data and data visualization, because I was already in Columbia University in a graduate program and had to come up with a thesis project. So my thesis project was about trying to come up with a music search engine which would give better recommendations than the average thing that was happening at that point and present them visually. Because my experience as a promotion person, when I would call up, let's say, the music director of KSCR here at USC, I'd have to evaluate what their sort of framework as a fan was and what music history they thought of as important. If they're a classical music fan, it really wouldn't make sense to promote a grunge group to them, right? And the reverse. And you find that many music services, when you sign up for iTunes or Google Play, etc., when you want to get recommendation, there's a questionnaire. And I had a kind of questionnaire when I would approach these music directors. So the idea was to incorporate all those ideas into an app or some technology or algorithm and present these results visually. So I started looking up data visualization. And I'm sure I just Googled it. And the first dude I hit was this guy on the left, or the most significant thing I hit was Nathan Yao. And Nathan Yao has a wonderful blog called Flowing Data. And Flowing Data and Nathan Yao changed my life. So I got his book, and he started talking about these different applications that he used to create data visualizations for the New York Times. If if I'm going to try out or aim for something, I'm going to aim for the top. I'm going to aim for the Yankees. I'm going to aim for the moon, right? So Nathan Yao is talking about how the New York Times does data visualization, and he mentions a program called R. Rakim, from Eric B. and Rakim, my favorite music artist, his nickname is the R. So that, to me, was just a tremendous sign that I had to go forward with this. And how could I deny the fact that, you know, this thing is called R, and my favorite artist is R. And by the way, even my nickname for some people is R, because when I was growing up, there were a lot of kids named John. I used to always sign my name John R, like through college, John R, probably. So there's some people who call me R as a joke. So imagine that. So getting back to music and data, because the Grammys was last night, right? And people in the music business today are going to be looking at, and tomorrow, as this data comes back from these streaming services, keeping in mind this sort of idea. And let's think of this as, let's say, the music data ecosystem, and you could even include different forms of entertainment content and this sort of thing. Like you could have, there's probably a television data ecosystem that's very similar, or film data ecosystem. And I think those things are actually sort of referenced here. This part syncs references when a song's put in a commercial or a movie. So the idea is all these things add up to what you would call the footprint of your artist, right? And all the people in the advertising industry who have, let's say, a Pepsi commercial with Cardi B on it, are going to be evaluating how her streams were affected over the course of that viewing period and afterwards. And they'll be using tools like R. And my question for a lot of you folks here is, as we go through this, and maybe when we get to the end, there'll be a Q&A session. My question for the folks in this room is, how do we better evaluate, display, analyze this idea of footprint and how things grow? And the idea, I'll show you a chart in a minute, the line chart, that's very well developed. It looks like, you know, hockey sticks and all that stuff. But think about how a song starts out with just one play, and it's just one dot on that graph, and then becomes two dots, and maybe the two dots join together. And then you have something develop into consistent play over days. But this is a cute way of putting the same idea, a footprint of an artist. And of course it's a converse, because that's, you know, what rock fans are into. But then if you're a music executive, you would really start, or a television advertising executive, you might start really parsing that data into demographics and different parts of the country and genders and age groups. And let's say your artist was on a mobile phone commercial. You want to examine the results or the response on that platform. You know, you can look in Spotify streams and see which device somebody's been using, what zip code they're in, their age, gender, and all these things. So now let's think about the goals of the streaming services and how they compete against each other, right? And let's say the music biz and the content holders are trying hard to expose their stuff to as many people as they can. On the tech side, what would be the goal of Spotify versus iTunes versus Google versus any other business? They're advertising companies, and they are into time spent watching, listening. Very similar statistics as radio stations and television stations used to use. So the whole thing is about the stickiness of the platform, the interface, and the ability to surprise and delight users by coming up with the next data point, the unknown cell, the cell that hasn't been filled in yet. I got to put a song in that cell. Remember I was talking about my framework when I get to know the college radio person? I'm going to pull out of my bag something that fits in that framework. And Spotify and those guys are doing the same thing. And here's your big R chart. This is the visualization of the record collection that I put in Discogs. Okay? So this just shows the years of release and how many pieces of vinyl I have for each of those years. It makes a big peak when I was in the college radio station and getting a lot of free stuff. And then kind of comes back a little bit like when I worked at Def Jam and like got a lot of free stuff there too. But what's also interesting about this visualization for R and data visualization fans, is you can see the difference when the bins are different sizes. This has big bins. It looks like one big peak. But this one with the smaller bins, you can see this little peak here of records I probably was either influenced by my older brother or directly stole from his collection. So, and it's also, and by the way, it's purple because a lot of my coolest records are Prince records, because I'm from the '80s. Here's another visualization. This one is this one's from Tableau. I cheated, but it is representing a similar idea. This is my buddy Andy Stevens, who's a really great scientist. I have put in a plug for his company, Electrical Science. He has kept a record of all his shows on an Excel sheet. And he's only going to, like, at his peak, he went to about 25 shows in 1 year. And you can see, isn't this a bimodal data? Anybody want to confirm that in here? Anybody? Anyway, so I said, what happened here? He said, my daughter was born and we remodeled the house. So, but these are the things that the music services take into consideration and use to segment the audience and decide how to promote to who. And of course, any of us, if we were in the business school part of USC, would probably say, I want to promote and reach the biggest audience for the lowest price, right? And I want to find the artists that people care about the most and sort of have legs and get up and go on their own and have this word of mouth thing, or sharing and so forth. And so, as a result, you don't see a lot of classic rock on Spotify, right? There's just not a lot of it in there. I happen to notice, because this is my frame of reference, and of course the data and the tech on the Spotify side and every other service I interact with has me framed as this type of listener, right? So I see on Facebook a message that Bruce Springsteen has just released a bunch of live concerts only on Spotify. So now I'm old and I have to pull out my phone and open this app if I want to go to those Springsteen concerts, right? There's no other way to do it. They're forcing his audience onto Spotify by doing that. There's no other way to look at it. They're forcing the kids to do it, except it's the kids' grandparents. It's not the kids. So I have a really cool slide here. This one is from a presentation by Edward Lee, who's a big data scientist from Spotify, and he was showing at the Plotly conference. You can, if you want to look up his presentation, it's on YouTube. But Edward Lee spoke about what Spotify does to evaluate users and so forth on its end. And this is a visualization of his listening, his own listening habits, and it's showing which songs he returns to on which days and for how long and how much. So the different colors represent different playlist sources, I believe. You can go look this up, but the bottom line is that this is just a different way of answering the same questions we were talking about earlier in the presentation. Repetition of hearing songs, having a hit song that someone is expecting to hear and would actually turn on the service for, like these Springsteen shows that I'm talking about, versus the unknown data point, the song that Springsteen's bass player produced for another artist, which is connected via Rock Family Tree or something on the back end of Spotify. And if you're really interested in like looking at this type of data and this recommendation area, there's a lot of stuff out on the web. One of the cool sites to look up is called Every Noise at Once. And Every Noise at Once is a research paper that shows the connections. Somebody's into network data. This shows the connections between different genres in Spotify of a certain artist and all the tags that a certain artist might have. And of course, that then connects them to a bunch of other artists in different genres and so on and so on. Like the old shampoo commercial. One of the things that is going to be big this week as music people evaluate the response of the TV award show is going to be something like this. And this graph shows Spotify streams in different, from different sources. So one of these is playlists. One of these is my own playlist. One of these is other people's playlists. Does anybody want to guess which one the Spotify playlist is? Which color is the Spotify playlist? Or if you can't see the colors, just yell out which one.
The big one, right?
Which one?
The big one?
The big one. Where's it big?
In the middle?
Big in the middle? It's this one, the one that's big in the middle?
I suppose.
Why?
Spotify's popular? I don't know.
Okay. Well, this line is a continuation of this one, right?
Right.
So it started out very high up, right? And then it dropped. And then it came back a little bit.
Red.
So here they threw it on playlist, right? They took it off the playlist. They put it on a smaller playlist. A week or two later or whatever. Smaller playlist makes some activity. This purple line here is kind of interesting though. Why is the purple interesting? Oh wait, the answers right here. You didn't look at the answers? Anyway, the purple one is radio. So that's when people are streaming something and just kind of keep going without interacting with the site. They just let it play whatever they want. So these are algorithmic Spotify streams inflicted on unsuspecting listeners. Just kidding. But in a way it is, because this is exposing a new artist to people, right? So this one, collection, is the record store. That's the one where somebody said, I want to go back and listen to that later. I want that in my playlist, in my folder, whatever. That's really what people are going to be looking for in a week or two after this Grammy thing, right? Like, I watched last night, I saw, Her for the first time. Her was excellent. I watched Her a little bit. I looked up Her on Spotify. I gave Her a couple of search-oriented streams. Then I hit the plus button, and the next time she got played, it was from my collection.
Oh, so this is one song?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. One song or one artist or one album, one, entity on Spotify. Not allowed to say what it is. The band has been redacted.
No. But you could sing it and then we could maybe. I can guess that song in 4 notes.
I'm data scientist now. I don't have to be able to sing the songs I promote. When you're a promotion guy, though, sometimes you have to do that, though. Yeah. Like, you want to prove that it's a memorable, good, catchy kind of song. It has come up. It has come up. It also is a way that the promotion person proves that they like the song or that they know what they're actually trying to sell. At one point in my career, I was promoting to the curators at Spotify. And interestingly enough, what do you think is what do you think is the best way to influence a Spotify programmer?
Kickback?
Not in Sweden. Come on, they don't do that over there. The best way to influence a Spotify person is to tell them about radio stations, right? Because what's a radio station to Spotify? Does the word crowdsourcing mean anything to you? Hey, you told all these dudes who think of themselves as professional music programmers all about your song for the past month? What are they doing with it? I'm busy over here. I've got this computer. Give me the info from those guys. Tell me what they're doing. Amazingly. But yeah, so that's an interesting thing about that, in a way. Anybody have a question? Still awake?
I know there's a way that Spotify works, but I'm not a subscriber, so I'm really not that caught up on all that. My brother said get Spotify, and I never quite did. So, and it follows your tastes or something like that, right? And if you do like like easy listening, it'll splice it in for you. Right?
That's right. That's right. Because I've used my ID mostly in work situations, I have the most bizarre algorithm. It's not what I like at all. But yeah, it's a different sort of thing for us in a way. One of the things I would have liked to have shown along the way as becoming a music fan is this is really arcane, deep in the woods weed stuff, but a turntable, a radio, a cassette player, a Walkman, a CD player, a computer, an MP3 player, right? The first 5 or 6 of these are pretty easy to figure out, right? Like, you could go to somebody's house who had a different turntable, put a record on, mostly figure it out right off the bat, right? Radio, they're all the same. Turntables, they're all the same. So this idea in a way of the understanding what the purpose of the technology is and what you're trying to achieve with the technology makes it a lot easier. But for some reason, doing it on computer makes it a lot harder. And for people who are used to the tactile version. And I still feel like there's more to music than a black spreadsheet, My apartment is filled with all this junk. Like, stickers, T-shirts, posters, ticket stubs, album covers, cassettes, CDs. You know, in a way, all this stuff is kind of out of the mix when you do it on a computer or on your phone. And in some way, I feel something is missing from it. And I actually think that the next phase of this music technology development is going to be a more entertaining and informative and interesting interface that might look a little bit like that record store and some of the old interfaces. Another, you know, maybe it would be organized by family trees or something. But some sort of more visual and more explanatory way of doing this seems to be ahead.
Yeah, it reminds me that there used to be, I don't know if it's the last, there used to be a website that you can like create a playlist that's based on mood. And it will actually link other artists based on the mood of the songs. I don't really understand that. I don't know if you ever seen that.
It doesn't come to mind immediately, but that's certainly a feature in the Spotify data. And that's certainly a feature in the Pandora data, right? And as data scientists, it's fun to think about the decisions that these folks made as they created these services and so forth, and building things like that into the service and into the algorithms that that generate this this experience. And you know, when I think about Spotify and unlimited services, I'm beside myself, because as a kid, if I could have had that, I would have never left my computer or my phone. But at the same time, we did have that. We had libraries, we had record stores. We didn't have access to everything in the record store. But in a way, we could have had it if we did, if we wanted. So it's in some ways confusing, but I want to explain my perspective on things and how I got into this, and a couple of things I've done with R. One thing I want to say about R that's been really vitally important is that it's open source. And I want to encourage everybody here to keep it with you as you go through your career and all your experiences as a data scientist, because it'll never leave you. You'll always have R with you. You can never get separated from R by being separated from a company. You'll always have R with you. So I think it's, and I've been in a couple of, at least 3 or 4 enterprise level situations where the available technology failed, and R came in and did something that the existing stuff couldn't do. And in one of these instances, it was because somebody in that office heard me talking about R all the time. I was one of the only people in that office who knew the program or was interested in it. So I was kind of, you know, bragging about it and sticking it to them a little bit. I know something you guys don't know. But then one day came that, and it happened to be the Monday after Thanksgiving, in a retail company, trying to evaluate a new type of cash register, and the Excel license couldn't handle that many rows. And somebody walked over to me and said, "Hey, do you think that R can do this?" And so I wrestled with R a little bit, and a little bit later that day came up with something that showed what was happening over Thanksgiving week in a retail company. Another instance I could think of is when R totaled, you know, another Excel sheet that was too big and crashing that computer. R took that file and whipped out a total in about 30 seconds, you know, at the most. The 30 seconds was mostly me trying to figure out how to code it. So I just want to say thanks for having me. I hope you've learned something about what I do in my daily life and why I do it. And I believe in music as being a kind of universal language to improve the world and improve people's lives, and one of the best parts of the human experience. And in some ways, R, data visualization, math, statistics are exactly the same as that. So thanks for having me speak here. Do you have any questions?
I was wondering, in terms of when you're analyzing the data and you're looking at different factors and features, some music is good and some music is not. What do you do? Is there like a way to quantify that? Like when music is good, it's good music, or how do you look at that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because that's a field that's developing, right? All I've talked about mostly is sales and consumption type data, right? But what you're talking about is data that actually describes music itself, like waves and vibrations and valences and all that sort of stuff. So, Spotify owns a company called the Echo Nest. The Echo Nest developed data sets around this idea, and what's considered ideal or hit or somehow successful or better than others is a question that computers are racing hard to try and answer. There is music being developed by artificial intelligence, machine learning techniques that is considered more pleasant to listen to or more favorable for a certain thing, and they're using that a lot in advertising, naturally. So, does that answer your question a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
So have you been involved in building any of these prediction models for dishing out the next song to the user based on their past history?
No, I haven't. But my my big idea when I did my thesis in 2010 was something they call intelligent data and intelligent recommendation. I think those are the terms. And the idea is that my idea was that if I'm walking past Madison Square Garden and I'm a Rolling Stones fan and my phone has Get Your Ya-Ya's out, their album recorded in Madison Square Garden, it should flip into that song next, Very obviously, play Ruby Tuesday on a Tuesday, But these are all the gimmicks that radio guys have used forever. It's not, in fact, there should probably be a Spotify channel of like gimmick songs or something, right? You can tune in on Sunday morning and hear songs about Sunday morning, right? But again, a very obvious idea. They have playlists called Sunday morning, probably. So.
They do on Google Music.
What?
In Google Music, they do have those lists.
Yeah.
Thursday afternoon.
Thursday Afternoon is an awesome Brian Eno album. One song, 61 minutes long. He was out to prove that the CD could do something that the other configurations couldn't. Yeah. And just to be very esoteric for you scientists, Thursday Afternoon is a soundtrack to a video that he made. It's kind of artsy ambient video that you have to turn your TV on its side to watch. So my mom was like, "Why'd you turn my TV on its side?" All right. Gee. Thanks, everyone.
I use this.
No, that's fine. I think it's now here. Yeah. All right. So Alan, the second speaker, is supposed to give a talk today, so he called off around 2 o'clock. So I only have 3 hours to make the make the talk. So I'm not sure how much I'm gonna cover. But only one thing I'm gonna be sure is that you can be out of this room by 8 o'clock. Yeah. This is a fairly short one. So as you know, some of us went to the RStudio conference this year. Actually, I missed it last year. Malcolm told me too late. And then also at the time, I wasn't involved in the R users meetup, so I don't feel like the department will feel like, it's very worthwhile for me to send me to the RStudio conference. And then I have to tell you, if I'm able to summarize the RStudio conference experience just one sentence, it's the most friendly conference I've ever been to. I know I seem fairly young, I've never been to so many conferences, but because last year I went to the JSM, which is the Joint Statistical Meeting, so I'm supposed to find a lot of people to talk to because most of the people they're from the field of statistics or biostatistics. But surprisingly, we don't really study the same thing. And then for things like what you do for dissertation, clinical trials, and then that's the end of the conversation. And then because I'm actually towards to the genomics data, and then some of the models I use is more from the computer science world. So you can see how much difference between the computer science and the statistics will be the gap between me and my roommate. So we don't have nothing to talk about. So, but for the RStudio conference, you can easily have conversation with anyone, and then the way they set up the conference is to have you engaging basically from 8 o'clock when you start to have your breakfast and before the day you go. And then they even have happy hours for you to get together, so you can meet a lot of people you have been seeing tweeting on the Twitter, some people you have seen online but never meet them in person. This is a really good chance to talk to them as well. They are super friendly. And then I also met Yihui and Hadley and then Jenny Bryan over there as well. So it was a really good experience to be able to go to the conference. And yes, and then also, so if you haven't had the chance to go to, they already post all the materials online that you'll be able to see. The workshop we pay $100 to go to, and then all the talks they have, and then the e-posters, and then they even have a section to list all the people they have been to the conference, and then write about the experience they had. So there's a link to the blog as well. And then also I think fairly a little bit later this year they're gonna post the videos. So I think that's the next to-do list for us, to be able to have a day for everybody if you're interested, to catch up some of the videos. We can sit down and watch it together. And then even more fantastic will be follow that we can have a hackathon, or we can sit together and then solve some of the issues on the the GitHub, and then be able to contribute yourself, to contribute into the R community. Okay, so this is the list of all the workshops they had. Some of the really popular topics like data scientists and then machine learning. So if you're really planning to go to, make sure you sign up right now. The registration I think is open right now. You even can have an early bird discount. And then because if you kind of come to the game a little bit late, some of the really popular workshop is already done. And so Malcolm and I decided to go to different workshops. So he would pick the Shining one. And then I went to the advanced R Markdown. So cool, thank you. So before I plan my trip to R Markdown, I was like, R Markdown is fairly easy. You just open new and then create R Markdown and then need them. So that's just me being really naive because I haven't really been seeing really a lot of complex things behind it. The reason that R Markdown is fairly easy because the people working for the RStudio make it so. It's not because it's easy that you don't need to understand things behind it. Especially if you want to customize something for yourself and then be able to answer for really advanced questions. Those are something you need to study. So what they structured the R Markdown workshop, there's 2 parts. The first day will be to introduce some of the down family packages. For example, the R Markdown, just to need a reproducible document to be able to share with the colleagues. And then Shenzhen is the new one, even though most of our slides actually made by Shenzhen. It's a package from Yihui that be able to make really pretty interactive slides. And then blog down and the book down basically just helping you to start a blog and then a book by yourself. So I'm gonna talk about this a little bit because one of the talk given by the chef data science from Data Camp, I think David Robinson, this is one of the pictures he used during the talk. So this is kind of the progress and the experience he thinks about our users when you along gaining experience in the community. You can start with having a blog and then tweet about some of the really interesting experience with our on Twitter. Actually, I wasn't at Twitter at all. Like I know it's a really fantastic place to go, but I kind of like sliding on it. But then I realized another 3 organizers of our users, Malcolm, Emil, and George, they're all on the Twitter. So it's kind of forced me to be able to go on to it.
Yeah, I think it's over here thing.
Oh, I think it's out of time. Yeah, perfect, all the time. Yeah.
I was hoping that lab was going to make it through this.
Ooh.
Wow.
Sorry.
Ooh, okay. I mean, I still have a couple of slides, but don't worry, my slides will be posted on the GitHub. So even though if you have your phone, you can even open it right now because it's posted by the GitHub. Yeah, seriously.
These are good slides. I'll do that.
So it's learn from RStudio conference.net. So this is like the way they actually show in the during the workshop, like how to host your slides or any of the things you made in R for free. So it's, let me know if you'll be able to see this. Okay, so we're currently at slide 6 right now. So definitely there's a lot of interesting talks in the RStudio. I won't be able to cover them all, but my big impressions about this year is Shiny. Definitely, because before in academia, I feel like, oh, Shiny is just a really quick demonstration of the package or methodologies you have. It's not gonna go anywhere because it's kind of like fragile. That's the impression of it. And then, but once I went to the conference, I've been able to see a lot of people are taking the Shiny to another level. For example, there is a people from T-Mobile, they have some, models be able to implement the Shiny and then deploy it. And then there's people from police station from New York, and then they will be able to pull all the, the call history from the database and have them project in the map, and then be able to track down which people are calling them for emergency. So in that way, they will be better allocate the manpower from the police station. It was just, and then I have so many, conversation with people like, oh, I have this kind of models, I implemented the Shiny and I showed it to my boss. They're really interested, especially it's a really good platform to give it to someone who do not know, doesn't really have much experience with programming and statistics. It's just a really good takeaway and then catch them in the eye. And then most of the consequence, or most of the things I have heard after that will be, oh, they feel this is really interesting. They decide to take it to another level and then show it to the software engineers team, and then we have this deployed. So that's a really good result. So I definitely like learning Shiny. It's just another way to open your, door to another wall and then be able to, have your ability extended to another level. And then also RStudio conference I know sometimes, especially for like a junior going to a conference is very intimidating because you don't know much things and they're very hard to navigate and to talk to people. But RStudio conference has making this app and be able to really easy to talk to people. And then there is some like Bird of Bird events you can go to, you can talk to people in some of the events. They gather you in different tables. So if you're interested in the data science, there will be a table for it, and the education, and then school, academia, and in the industry, and then finance as well. So it's very easy for me to be able to just say, I'm interested in this, and then can I talk to you? And then even there's one person, I will never expect to meet some people like that. He totally understands my dislocation because that's exactly what they do. And in the company, that was really amazed. I would never think about going to a professional conference compared to academia. We'll meet someone understand my dislocation not much. Yeah. And then of course there's people recruiting as well. I even met a guy from Amazon. They was like, oh, we're looking for someone know like how to SQL, and then Shiny, and then so they were very interested in just knowing people like what's the availability of after graduation. Would be interested in doing something. Also, the Shiny app for the RStudio app was able to have you get connected to people, because you don't want something really good happen in the RStudio conference, stay in the RStudio conference. You want to be able to connect them in the long term. So the app was able to that you connect to people over LinkedIn, Twitter, and then later on, when you have some really interesting, you'll be able to easily share with those people who share the same interest with you. So that was really good too. And also after the conference, I went to the Tidyverse debug day, which before I have no idea about what it is. It's just Malcolm Elmel say this is really interesting. You have to sign it up. So it's only like $10. I did it, and then it turns out to be the really good experience entire RStudio conference. So this is what it looks like. I'm actually sitting in the center of that. You couldn't see it, but also there's a picture about Malcolm, like really behind me. And so what they did is basically they have all the questions, issues from the Tidyverse package, and then you will be able to solve them. Because before I'm more like a question asker, because my dissertation is for another package building on that. So one of the things I do enjoy the most, which is just go to that package, say, hey, this is something you need to get fixed. Otherwise my dissertation is not going to move. There's some typo you should do, and then waiting for him to fix it. And actually, that guy, the maintainer, lives in Japan, so the time different zones. But it turns out I can just do it by myself. I don't have to wait him to fix all the problems. I can just do it. And even though I understand this package better than him, because basically, I read every single line of there. I traced back all the functions used, being able to manipulate and have a different version of myself. So, and then, so those are some experiences. You can claim the questions and the issues, and then make a pull and then request and then push all the the modified version of it to it. Okay. So one last slide is why is it so important to contribute? So if you be able to see the slides, it's like. Is it for work? Because I'm talking to some people from Google, they was like, we actually have our own little package to be able to do all the things all for us in a reproducible fashion, and then we actually have to maintain the package and debug it. So this is exactly, you can just practice every day. And then Airbnb has their own package of doing so as well, and then you can even get a little sticker for like Airbnb. That's like the package name they have. And also this is for your own benefit as well, because have this kind of experience later on when you have your own art project, you'll be able to know to manage and then structure in a fashion that this is kind of situation I've seen it previously. Maybe I should avoid doing so, be able to make my package kind of stable in the long term. And also it kind of calm you down, because when people ask questions, they don't know. They actually ask correctly. Like they don't know. They think they only try their best to ask a question, but they don't. But if you have practice in the long term, you should be like, oh, you should make your errors reproducible. Then I will be able to come in and help you. So those are kind of really good tips for you as a maintainer of the package in the long term. And also, of course, for the community. I mean, as myself, I've benefited a lot from the community, not just to learning the skills, but also having people. Building the confidence of doing this. So this is something I think we should, give it back to the community as well. And that's it. Sorry, went on like 5 minutes.